Welcome to the Creepin' It Real Show, your one-stop shop for weird news, movie reviews, otherworldly, and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow Creepin' It Real Show on Twitter at creepin_it. You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, creepinitshow.com. Welcome to Creepin' It Real. I just want to quickly get in here and introduce my two co-hosts so we can talk all things Stranger Things. Kristi from North Atlanta. How are you doing?
Yo, I've been better, but I'm here, I'm alive, I'm surviving.
Yeah, you're trying to battle through a few things. Thanks for your gutting it out today.
Hey, and just apologies if I'm sneezing and sniffing. It just is what it is, but hey, it was worth it.
Awesome. Hey, Moni from the great state of California. How's everything going in your neck of the woods?
Good. Went out last night, had some fun with friends, have no complaints today. Usually would be nice to be with Kristi and hanging out with her, but right now I'm glad she's keeping that out where you guys are, so.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? That's what's up. It's finally starting to feel a little bit like winter here in Georgia. How is that? Well, actually, luckily, you haven't really had an opportunity to get into this bitter wind, Kristi.
No, I've been in my bed for 3 days since I got off the airplane from Washington. I got home at like 2 a.m. on Friday morning and felt like total dog shit. Took a shower, got in bed, woke up, and was just, my whole head was just filled with whatever that happens when you have a cold. And I've been in bed since, so it's been a good time, let me tell you.
Hey, well, at least you're knocking it on out before the holidays officially jump off.
That's true. We leave for Florida next Saturday, so I guess if I was going to get a cold, this would be the time.
Well, you know what's up? I thought it would be a good idea, seeing as a few episodes back we were talking about upcoming things. And, we talked about Stranger Things Season 2 quite briefly. So I thought it would be awesome if we just went ahead and, kind of muddle through our brief opinions on the second season of Stranger Things. Now, I had mentioned, and I think that this goes back to probably episode 2, that I was kind of worried about this season. And I also made a comment, and I don't know if it was worrying to anybody, when I was saying that this season to me wasn't as good as the previous. I actually went through and watched it a little bit more. And even though I'm not going to put it directly on par, I definitely thought that it was a solid entry into a second season, which is usually can spell disaster for some television shows, but I thought that they overcame the sophomore slump. So before we jump into our thoughts on more specific things that happened in the season, Kristi, what was your overall thoughts on it in general? Did you feel like they kind of matched the mood from the previous season? Do you think that they should have done something else, or were you pleased with the product that you got?
I was very pleased. I was worried after we had the conversation where you were like, you weren't really sure. And I thought it was fantastic. I was very pleasantly surprised, which I like that. So I kind of liked that you set me up in a way. I know you didn't intentionally do it, but gave me, I didn't go in with high expectations. And I've been watching it since I got home, which is easy when you're in bed all day. And it was really great. I have a couple of gripes, but we'll get into that later. But overall, I agree with you. I think it was very, very well done.
Well, Moni, I know that you were a big fan of the show. I hope I didn't scare you off. What did you think in general about season 2?
Well, it was funny because your comment I think it was last week about it, or 2 weeks ago, was that they were trying to do too much. And then I started watching it, and at some point there were, I believe, 4 different storylines going. And I was watching with my husband, and I was like, I think Yardley might have been right. They're trying to do a lot here. But as time went on, everything kind of came together really beautifully. And I think that characters from last season, I'm sure we'll get into this, but grew in a way that I really wanted to see them grow. And I found last season slow in parts, which I mentioned before. And so this season, having more going on once it kind of started to come together was kind of a good thing, because there was more go boom for me, and that was helpful in staying awake and watching the entire thing and enjoying it. So overall, I really did enjoy this season, possibly even more than the first one.
Okay. Well, you know what? That's what's up. Something that kind of stuck out to me is when I watched the very first episode of the show, the cold open, when you had the criminals fleeing the murder scene. You had the police going after them. And then we see that there is another character who actually had a number 8 tattoo on her wrist. She has this vision and she makes the police kind of think that the bridge is falling. And no, I thought that was a pretty cool thing that she did. And we saw her nose bleed, which was akin to what we had been seeing from number 11. Did the very first scene of this kind of take you out of it and just make you feel like this doesn't even feel like the same show? What'd you think, Kristi?
Yeah, by the time they actually got to her story, and I believe it was episode 7, I completely forgot about that scene. I wish that they had not opened with it, because I didn't really know what it was pertaining to, and it didn't really stick with me. And so even until I read your show notes, I had completely forgotten about that scene. So I wish they had done that a little differently, but what can you do? I mean, it all comes together now. It makes sense, but I wish that maybe they had added that when she was kind of on her journey, before she met up with Callie. I don't know. I don't know when you would have fit it in, but it would have been better to me if they'd done it later on in the show.
Okay. Any feelings on that, Moni?
Yeah, actually, I had forgotten about that as well. But now that I was reminded, I do remember thinking, where are our guys? Where are the characters that we've waited this year to see? And so obviously we didn't have too long to wait, but it still was just like, okay, interesting tidbit that there are others out there like 11, but let's get down to who we came here to enjoy.
Something that I found kind of crazy is just the fact that when we meet Callie, and that was the character's name, who is number 8, I was wondering about the people that were, her crew, so to speak. For me personally, I didn't really like the whole crew concept because, to me, if everybody there would have had some type of ability, I thought that would have made it a little bit more interesting. But at the same time, when you have if you were to have that many superpowered people, that would probably make the show even a little bit more out there than it is already. But I wasn't too thrilled with, with the rest of Callie's crew in general. Was that something, did you like those characters? I mean, we really didn't find out anything about them outside of the overall reason why they were with Callie, which was kind of getting revenge. Did they take you out of it, or did you feel that those characters did their purpose, or were you curious? And this goes to anybody. Were you just curious about the other characters in general, or did you get enough out of them?
I think, and this is what, as I was watching that, they had their own episode, and then you never hear from them again. Basically, for me, I wasn't too worried about it because I have a feeling they're going to be very prominent in the next season. Like, they're basically just a little preview of what's going to be going on next season. Somehow Callie's either going to be a villain or I hope not, but something's going to be going on next season where we're really going to dive in more to their group. So I just wasn't overthinking it at all.
Callie presents a moral crossroads for 11 that we see her overcome in coming back to her cop, her policeman in episode 7. And I do think that they're setting that up to be a villain in the next season, Callie and her crew. That being said, yes, on one hand, it would have been more interesting, Yardley, for people maybe too that like comic books and comic book movies, if her crew at all had abilities as well, maybe, but it would have been maybe too much like the X-Men or something along those lines. On the other hand, what a cliche though. Oh, here's a bunch of misfits that don't fit in, and they're headed up by this this, person who does have special abilities and they go around doing crime and they justify killing people. I mean, that's pretty dark. Obviously, there are dark things in this show, but this is still a show acted by and about kids. And then you have this band of kids that kill people because they don't fit into society. Like, that's going to be a big, I think, if they do it right, it's going to be a big villain for next season. And it's going to tear Elle apart a little bit because obviously she sees Callie as like a sister figure and someone who helped her hone her abilities a little bit more when needed, but is going to be at odds with her just based on moral beliefs.
That's what one of my gripes was about the overall show was there was several characters in this season that were very cliche. Callie's group being one. I liked Callie as a character, but her group was very cliche to me. And then Billy was very cliche. I'm like, really? I mean, come on. He was just, first of all, Billy, you already know he's going to be a raging bully asshole. And then he just took it to a whole new level. And his character really freaking irritated me. I didn't see anything. I mean, the ending was good when he got his ass kicked by his dad, and we kind of see why he's such a jerk, but he was just so cliche. He wasn't a real character to me. He was just some dude that, I mean, his sister was great, but Billy, I didn't like. Those were some of my main gripes about the show, was some of these people were pretty cliche.
I
How
actually
much did
think
he
that
remind you, though, of the bully from It? Like a bad, cheap version of the bully from It is with the dad that beats him up and he's
Yeah.
chasing after his younger sibling to like see what's going on. I don't know. It's interesting.
I actually think that next season that they're probably going to take Billy's character a little further because in a way when I watched it, he was definitely annoying, but I think that was his purpose. But I definitely think that what they were doing with the character and the seeds that they planted, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but there's a scene when he's flirting with, I believe it's Mike's mom, when she gives him the address. Um, I think that I don't think that his story can end with the spike bat between the legs. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Max is going to be around. The parents are still going to be married. So we know that we're going to get more of that character. I'm more or less curious with this power struggle between he and Steve, how this is going to play out in the school. But I can see how the character could be a turn off to some people. I actually look forward to seeing what's going to go on with him next season. What about you, Moni? Did you think that the character was a turn off? Do you think that he has purpose? And do you look forward to seeing him again?
I'm a bridge between the two of you. I'm an ambassador because he did annoy me this season, and I did see him as just sort of a device to make certain things happen in the plot. That being said, I did enjoy his interaction with the new Stifler's mom cliche, and I kind of wonder if they're going to hook up next season. And I do think that we haven't seen the last of his interaction with Max. We haven't seen the last of their family dynamic, and I think he will make a good rival for our newly developed character that Steve has kind of turned into as kind of the two top guys at school, to kind of see how they bounce off each other next season.
And you know what? Along the lines of introductions, at the beginning of this, you two were kind of saying that Billy made you sick. Now, I know that your favorite sleeper character had to be the guy in the arcade eating the Cheetos. When they find out that Mad Max has beaten actually, I think it's 2 out of 3 of Dustin's scores. So did Cheeto Guy freak you out?
I bet you Cheeto Guy uses the KFC bath bomb. I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. He was so annoying. It's the hair and the way that he was being all condescending, eating those Cheetos, trying to actually get a date from Mike's sister, Nancy. But I thought it was kind of clever how they snuck in the high scores being beaten, and then they'll eventually find out who Mad Max is. But I thought that was pretty cool introduction. We got to see some throwbacks, some of the old video games, Dig Dug and Dragon's Lair, which I totally agree with Dustin was totally overpriced bullshit. I think it was like almost $1 a game in the 80s. It was crazy.
I know I said this last time we talked about Stranger Things, but the nostalgia from the show is insane because It's so absolutely exact 80s. What I was trying to explain to my daughter when she had already watched it all, but she saw I was watching it and got excited and came in and sat with me for a little while, trying to explain to her that every detail, every single detail, the shampoo and the tubs, it is just mind blowing to me how well their set organizers are. I mean, nothing is missed, and I'm looking because I remember, very well what the 80s was like, and it just is mind blowing. The arcades, the hair, that bag of Cheetos that he's holding. Everything is exactly the way it was in the 80s. And it is, I mean, kudos to them. That's absolutely amazing.
How much fun would it be to work on that show and get to be
Oh,
involved in finding those props and making everything look just right? Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah,
it,
Steve in that members only jacket was just a total throwback.
Yeah.
it
Because
makes,
I actually, oh, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Kristi.
it makes me wonder, because they have so many food props and shampoo props and soda props, and if they go to the actual like Cheetos and say we want to use your product, can you make an 80s bag? And they're like, hell yeah, because hello, what awesome marketing is that? And that they actually are making, because there's no way you're going to find a bag of Cheetos from the 80s. So
Oh yes, there's a way. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you go on
would you want to
eBay,
eat it?
well, they could fill it up, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
there's always something
that's
somewhere
true.
where you can get that stuff. You can mine eBay for, you know, thousands of things. But I hear what you're saying. They definitely did a great job, and I don't know if this show, maybe you can enlighten me or anybody. Did they win any awards last year for anything like, set design
They
or?
did, and now I can't remember. I'd have to look it up, but I know they won something because I remember my daughter was very excited. Um,
Well, well, you know what? To kind of get into something that we saw quite briefly in the arcade scene. We had Will. He kind of had a little flash of the upside down, and they kind of threw that back into the mix, literally, probably within the first 20 minutes of the episode. The upside down in general, as a place where all of these things that are happening throughout the series are emanating from, is the upside down something that you think that either do you think that it's played out, or are you still kind of in with them exploring like that kind of realm of weirdness? Is that anything that set you off in any type of way, Moni? Are you tired of it, or are you in for the ride with them sticking with that?
No, I was glad to see it. And I don't know, just seeing the previews for this season before it came out, there was so much happening. The way they made the previews look like way more action packed than last season was. To see the upside down brought back something from the first season that I enjoyed and found creepy and yet familiar. So I was like, okay, this is, after we open with Callie and we're like, who the hell's that? These aren't our people. To bring it back to an arcade and then to bring back, all of the characters we love and then to bring back the upside down. We're like, this is what we came here. Like, how does the upside down fit in? We thought we defeated it last time. So what's new in this world? It was just kind of interesting to see where they were going to go with that.
I
Okay.
agree. I was excited to see it because there was kind of this unfamiliarity with the beginning, and then you're looking and searching to try to. I was having a hard enough time remembering the first season because when you watch, I watched Jesus 7 seasons of Shameless, and I'm watching Outlander and I'm watching all these shows. Well, it's been a year, so it's been a while, and I was trying to remember everything, and I should have done a refresher course on it, and I didn't. So when I started watching Stranger Things too, I was searching to remember what the whole and complete story was to begin with. I mean, yes, I knew the premises of it and remembered parts of it, but so I was happy to see that part of it and to, oh, good, something that I recognize and I remember. So I was happy to see it. And honestly, to me, this is the upside down world is literally the premises of the show if they were going to continue on with the same characters. Now, if they had taken to a whole new town and a whole new thing of characters, I wouldn't have wanted to see the upside down world. I wouldn't have wanted to see something else strange. But since we're sticking with the same group, it just makes sense that somehow the upside down world pertains to them.
Yeah, and kind of mentioning the group, one of the things that you can do is you can talk about the relationships within the group. And we got a lot of character arcs this year where relationships were built up or they were turned down. And one of those relationships was the relationship between Nancy and Jonathan, and also Nancy and Steve. So Steve is kind of one of those characters that a lot of people have latched on to as a character that they like. But I think initially last season, he was a character that I know that I didn't like until pretty much, the last couple of episodes of last season. So we kind of get one of these things where, just like in high school, people, and granted, they went through a lot. So a lot of their experiences have kind of led to the way certain characters feel about each other. So in a nutshell, within the first few episodes, we get a scene where Nancy and Steve are at a party. She gets drunk. She tells him how she really feels. She says that she doesn't love him. Steve is pretty hurt. He can't believe it. But we also see Nancy kind of on the sly ogling Jonathan. So I'm very curious about both of your feelings on who do you ship? I mean, do you like Nancy with Steve, who I don't think that she deserves Steve anymore. Like, Steve is on another level. It kind of turned me off, the thing that she did. However, I can also understand that her relationship with Jonathan is something that I think that they hinted at in the show. She mentioned something along the lines of she had waited for him or something like that. So do y'all fall on the Jonathan Nancy side or the Jonathan Steve side? And do you think that she was right with what she did? And how did you feel about Steve in general?
I like Steve. I liked Steve last season. I think he's hot, and I mean that in a Mrs. Winger kind of way. So I'll take full responsibility that I'm crushing on a kid, and that's cool with me. I think he's adorable. I liked him last season, and I had a feeling that, he, of course, given his situation with what he was going through with her last season, that he was kind of right to be the way he was last season. And then this season, we have a different perception of him because at the end of last season, you find out, oh, he's not going to be one of those typical jerk guys you see on the show. He's actually a good guy. And he just really cares for Nancy. Jonathan, okay, I hate to say this. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate, but Jonathan gives me the creeps. I don't really care for him. I know he's supposed to be the sweet brother, and I'm not feeling him at all. But I'm not exactly that excited about Nancy either. So I'm kind of happy that Steve's kind of off on his own and he helped the kids out. And I thought this season his character was awesome. He was some of my favorite scenes were the ones that he was in it, not just because he's cute, but just him with the boys. It was really funny, him trying to babysit those kids and just the stuff they were getting him into, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so okay. Jonathan is a little creepy. And I also think, though, he's the perfect product of what would come out of a house where Winona Ryder's character is your mom.
Yeah,
even before
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if Joyce Byers raising you guys by herself, essentially, and going through the relationship that she ended and all the things, the way that they live, even prior to the whole upside down situation happening, could easily breed a kid like Jonathan. That being said, they're teenagers. So let's remember that none of them are going to be married to each other at this point, and they're going to explore different relationships and different attractions. I did not like Steve that much last season until the last couple episodes, kind of like Yardley, where he basically stood up and became more of the man that we hoped he could be. And this season, I'm always kind of about, though, the underdog and the nerdier guy, though. So I kind of was feeling Jonathan, even though I was like, he's misunderstood, he's a little creepy, he's a little nerdy, but I still kind of rooted for him just to kind of win in a way. And I feel like Steve is someone who could have any girl he wants. That's the thing. Like, they're teenagers, they're going to explore their thing. And then also, he could have any girl that he wants. So why not let Jonathan have Nancy? And I did like that at the very end, the last episode, that Nancy's not necessarily with anyone, or we don't really know where she stands. And that's kind of cool too, because again, teenagers, this isn't going to last forever, the odds are. And you don't have to put everything in such a neat box that everyone ends up with somebody. Like, people don't always have to end up with somebody. They could just be at a dance hanging out with one of their, siblings' younger friends. Like, it's cool. So that was my thoughts on both relationships. I was happy to see her and Jonathan hook up because that's how teenagers do things, and I thought the underdog deserved to get the girl, even if it was just for one night.
Yeah, and did either of you get an opportunity to look at the link that I posted in the show notes about Charlie Heaton, who plays Jonathan?
I had heard about that already.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? They had to
Yeah.
miss the premiere. I mean, hell, as far as I'm concerned, he's lucky if they did find cocaine or traces of cocaine, so to speak, on him, and they sent him back to UK. Then he got the easy way out. And here's something else: shouldn't have traces of cocaine on your clothes coming to the US, because if you're going to California for a premiere, there's plenty of cocaine that you can get here. So
You
there's
don't
no
need to travel with it.
know.
Obviously, he's new to the celebrity thing. He doesn't know how all this works,
No, absolutely. Now, jumping off of the Jonathan and Steve train there, and for me, Steve is my guy more so, and I think he became more of my guy this season, mainly because of some of the relationships that he made with the kids, this season. I know a lot of people were calling him a babysitter or whatever, but I really did like the relationship that he was building, especially with Dustin. Well, we'll talk about that a little later, but I think for me, the fact that he kind of became the default protector of the kids because, they were separated from Sheriff, Hopper and all of those characters,
He doesn't even have time for Nancy right now. He's busy,
Yeah.
I don't know, protecting the town, protecting the kids. He's busy being a badass.
He's the
Move
guy who
aside,
does
woman.
it. Yeah, and he'll never get the credit that he deserves, for what he did this season. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, he was going after what are they, demi dogs or whatever? I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty freaking badass.
With a baseball bat.
I'm
Yeah.
like, he might be just 18, but or 7, whatever, however old he is, but that's pretty badass in my opinion.
Kristi's wishing he's 18. She's like, he's
damn.
18, right? Right?
I know, and he really did step up with the spike bat. We saw him battle a little bit when things got heated, and he had a certain measure of resolve, even though the odds were against him. Now we haven't had an opportunity to talk about your girl, Mad Max, Kristi.
Yeah, I like her.
You don't like her brother, but when we finally do get introduced to Mad Max, we pretty much find out that at least 2 of the 3 of the group, Lucas and Dustin, were really thirsty over the young lady that has been kissed by fire. So let me ask you, is the thirst really that real to where you would go in the trash can when you see the person that you like throw some trash away, where you're going to go in and see what they threw away? I've never been that thirsty. So, and what kind of information could you get out of that? And is that a little bit creepy? I mean, come on, go. I'm ready to hear.
I absolutely would never in a million years go after trash that my crush throws away, but it is so perfect for that group of kids. I mean, it's absolutely something that they would do because they're just naturally on, always looking for information, and they think they're little detectives, and that's just their personalities. So it did not shock me at all. It was really funny. And it was even funnier when what was written on it was like "Go away, stalker" or whatever it was. She said written on it, knowing that they're going to go after her trash.
Word, yeah, for sure. And girls know that stuff. Even the tomboy girls, they know that stuff. Like, you guys, younger guys think they're so stealth, like giggling after a girl, but they're not. And I think she was worth it. Like, she's a tomboy. She's into the same stuff they're into. Like, I think it was pretty funny that she didn't believe them. So in a way, like, through their frustration, they kind of had to earn her. She wasn't just like, I'm going to follow along what the boys are doing, like,
Yeah.
She had
And
issues at home that made her tougher. I just love like badass women. Like this whole season, it was like obviously Joyce Byers is fighting for her son. Like we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But and then Max like being standing up against her brother and being the only one while Steve and her brother are fighting to be like, I'm finally going to do something about this. While everyone else is just standing like, stop hitting him, stop hitting him. Like y'all could do something, like. She's a badass and I adore her, and I'm really glad that she's in this season, and I think that the boys were right to fight over her.
I think also she's one of, you just don't, when you're watching a show and people do things in the show or the movie and you're like, if this was me, I would never do that. That's insane. And it was funny when they were walking in the forest and with Steve and they hear those noises and everybody goes towards the noises but her.
Yes.
And she's like, what are you doing?
Y'all are running towards this? What?
I run away from those, It's like,
yes.
Somebody's speaking the truth, I just thought it was funny that she had a really good head on her shoulders and wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm just, her character wasn't just going to go along with everything.
No, she's like, are you sure this isn't some kind of bear? Like, I mean, she's just, she knew her stuff.
Yeah, she was definitely doing her own thing, and I kind of like that. I like the fact that when someone knows that you're the one that likes them, you kind of give them the power, and she knew that, to a certain extent that she had the power over them, and I thought that was definitely something that was cool. So since we're talking about, one of you had brought up, a lot of the strong female characters that they had in this, and you brought up, of course, oh my gosh,
Joyce.
Winona Ryder's character, Joyce, and her relationship with Will, but she also had a relationship with the Radio Shack manager Bob Newby, who's Sean Astin from Lord of the Rings fame. I think he was Samwise Gamgee, if I'm correct. I really did like their relationship, and it was so awesome. And Kristi mentioned this earlier in the segment. She was talking about the authentic nature of a lot of things that they bring into the show. And I know when I was growing up, Radio Shack was that place. And I kind of put in the show notes that Radio Shack is the 80s. In the 80s was like a combo of Smart Tech from 40-Year-Old Virgin and Best Buy's Geek Squad. Anything that you needed to do, you could always go to Radio Shack, and you always got that attention because they worked on commission, and it was hilarious. So I thought that them inserting Radio Shack was totally awesome. I love the relationship between Joyce and Bob. And one of the things that I actually am the most curious about as far as your companions are concerned, to kill or not to kill, did you think that the decision to kill off that character, because he instantly became a character, that you liked on the show, or do you feel like them killing him off was just an opportunity? Because I think at the end of the day, we all know that Joyce and Sheriff Hopper are supposed to be together, but I wish that they wouldn't have killed my guy off. But I'm kind of curious. Moni, what did you think about Samwise Newby?
So first of all, he was good for Joyce, but to me, made me kind of cringe. He was just too, I came around to liking him. And again, I liked him for Joyce, but he just made me cringe a little with how sickeningly sweet and nice he was. She deserved a really nice man. And I'm glad that he fulfilled that role for the time that that character existed. But oh my God, so nerdy. So nerdy. That being said, I think because of that, I was like, well, he's not going to last. I think we all called it right when his character is introduced. And, unfortunately. Oh, really? You don't think so? Well, and I think that he had to die because we had to lose someone we cared about, but we didn't want to necessarily have to lose someone from the core group if we're going to have another season of this show.
Yeah.
So it had to have an impact, and it does, because Winona Ryder's performance in, seeing him get killed and then her devastation even after the fact, you can sort of just feel the sadness emanating off Joyce Byers, even in the last episode after he's been dead. But that being said, I think unfortunately he had to go because, can we call them, let's see, Hopper and Byers? Can we call him, let's see, Joyce? Can we call him like Jopper? Can we call him like, I'm shipping them is what I'm saying. He's got enough of that edge that I think makes him a guy that would treat her well, but wouldn't be sickeningly giving you a cavity with everything that comes out of his mouth. So that's my take on the whole thing.
Hopper's demands, man. I know he's.
Yes.
I definitely think that that's something that it's so obvious that's destined to happen, and I don't think that there was any way that you could take anything else away from it, especially how. Yeah, the series ended. So I thought
they're
that
so
was
damaged, you know. I feel like they
but that might not be a good thing, though. That might not be a good thing.
But I mean, like darkness. You can't have someone who's just like, I am a unicorn and lightness and clouds, and someone who's like, I've seen some shit, and like, you know, to really, for longevity of a relationship, kind of, it might be better if you've both been through and seen some of the same shit, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, it definitely makes conversation a lot more true. So to speak.
I completely disagree with you guys because I thought Bob was absolutely fantastic. I love him. I'm upset he's dead. First of all, I know, Yardley, you compare Sean, you always think of him as Lord of the Rings, but I think of him as Goonies, which I actually read an article where there was several scenes in Stranger Things that kind of gave a nod to Goonies. And then one of them was flat out, he said something, I think it was something like, whenever they were digging, whenever she had all the tunnels taped up all over the room and was asking his help to figure out what the X meant, like where that was, and he asks what's at the end of this pirate treasure, because he was he was the main character on the Goonies, and they went hunting for the whole show movies about pirate treasure, and I also liked how, and I've seen this happen before, and not just in the movies, in real life, how back when they were kids, Joyce and Hopper were like the rebels smoking in the bathroom, and he was the resident school nerd, and they grow up and you get older, and what isn't really appealing as a kid becomes appealing to you, especially Joyce, who really needs like an anchor, somebody who is stable and kind and absolutely adores her and was willing to be put through all the crazy shit that actually ends up dying for them. That broke my heart. I really liked him. I liked him from the second, because I love Sean Astin anyway, but just I was happy about his character. I was happy that they paired, Joyce with somebody, and she seemed really happy, and I love Winona and Joyce's character, so I was really, really bummed. I mean, I think I even cried a little bit when he died. That broke my heart.
Well, it was totally super sad. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just a character like that. Unfortunately, it's kind of like The Walking Dead or almost any horror or anything. Is someone that sweet and pure and good, A, it's going to rip your heart out when they pass, and B, it's going to be like that they're too good for this world. You have to have a little bit of that willingness to, I mean, he did go and try to help them, but at the end of the day, he's not the guy that's purposely picking up the baseball bat and going like, bring it on, like he's the sweet guy that is there after it's over. So unfortunately, he didn't make it through.
I don't want Hopper and Joyce to get together. I just like them as friends. I like that they've stayed friends. I like that at the first season, he was one of the first people to believe her and help, her with her son. And this season now he's taken on an even stronger role with taking on 11 and still supporting her in a friendship role. I don't want to see them get together. I think that they're too alike. They've got too many similarities. I want to see her with somebody that he has a little bit of a temper, and I don't want her, and she's a handful. I mean, half the town thinks she's freaking crazy, or probably more than half. And she's a handful. I mean, look at all the shit she's been dealt. She's going to be watching those kids like constantly. I don't blame her. And she's going to need somebody that can be there for her all the time, which he's got a crazy job, and he's got this child he's kind of taking on, and a little bit of a temper. So I'd like to see her with somebody else, but that's just me. They apparently don't believe so and killed him.
I know, and it was a brutal
It was
death. It
sucked,
was,
man.
but it was glorious. It was
It was
glorious how he
good.
went out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, well, now that you brought up all of those points,
Sorry.
Chrissy, you're kind of making me
I'm sorry.
rethink what's going on there. But no, you made some very valid points. And speaking about someone who doesn't have validation, and that is Barb's parents, because we do find out that Nancy and Steve, they would kind of routinely go and have dinner with Barb's parents. And one of the best scenes that I thought that the show offered was kind of trying to put you in the shoes of those two who were sitting there listening to two parents who are holding out hope against all odds that their daughter is still out there. And then they're talking about all of these plans that they have to bring in, a detective, and, they're about to move away, and all of these things are happening. And Nancy's essentially sitting at their dinner table sick because she knows that Barb is dead and that she is not coming back. And I think initially, she wanted to tell them, but Steve talked her out of it. And I thought that was tough. But did that scene do anything for y'all? Did it work for you? And what would you have done in that situation? Would you have been able to tell her parents, or would you have just sat there eating KFC and just gutted it out and left?
Well, how do you tell them? I mean, it's not like you can produce a body and prove what you're saying, and so you're just some teenager being like, yeah, your kid is dead, like, and on the other hand, I could see you being so sick with grief and guilt that you put yourself through going to this dinner and hearing them talk because you feel guilty for what has happened, and you feel like you deserve to have to take this kind of guilt upon yourself and hear about this and just take this grief every week. And I also think that could be a big thing, a big reason. They don't really go into why Nancy says that she no longer loves Steve, but I wonder if some of the things they went through, instead of making them stronger, in some ways put a wedge between them. They have this death of a friend that they know what happened. They have these horrible secrets that they share, and maybe that's too much for a relationship, any relationship, let alone a teenage relationship. Maybe he's this big popular guy and she's a girl that has all this guilt inside over things that have happened, and maybe she doesn't think they share that, or maybe they share too much of it. I mean, we don't know. Maybe we'll delve into that next season a little bit more.
What did you think about Barb as a character, quickly? Just, did you like her last year, or was she just the plot device that she really was? Like, what did you think? And all the hype. Lots of people, a very small minority of Stranger Things fans, have this epic following of Barb, who I think had less than 5 minutes of total screen time last season. Is that a character that resonated with you, or was she a throwaway, like she was meant to be on the show? Well, not necessarily throwaway. She had her purpose, I guess, for Nancy's arc. But did you give a damn about her last season, Monty?
No, I did not. However, if this were real life, which when you're watching a show, you're supposed to suspend your disbelief and try to pretend that this is real life, right? There would be consequences to a teenage girl just going missing. And even if the police were no longer actively investigating it, her friends and her family would still feel her loss. So on the one hand, I don't care about her character, but on the other hand, I appreciate that they're bringing up the ripple effect that the loss of somebody like that would cause in people's lives. And just as a side note, I saw this really awesome mug. It was super 80s vintage. I meant to grab it to post it, but it says "We Still Remember," and it's just a picture of Barb, and super, super cute. But I think I need it.
That's funny. There's an actual book I saw. Instead of Waldo, it's "Where's Barb," and it's all the seascapes with and instead of finding Waldo, not sea, but just land and everything. Instead of finding Waldo, you find Barb. And, she's got kind of similar, Barb glasses and everything. I thought that was cute. But
that is cute.
My overall opinion of Barb, I liked Barb last season for the small amount of time that she got. I really felt bad for her because she was kind of got the short end of the stick when Nancy showed up to that party, and then they kind of dumped her, and then she ends up dying because of it. And with that, I mean, I wasn't devastated when she died. I figured when once she starts to walk home or whatever she was doing, and I was like, well, there she goes. You just know that's kind of the arc of how the story's going to go when you know what kind of show you're watching. Um, at first, I wasn't overly excited that Nancy was gonna, when you think that she's trying to get a hold of Barb's parents, and goes to the research center or hospital, whatever you want to call it, and talks to the doctor, and he's explaining why they have to keep everything secret. And I was kind of on their side versus her side. What she ended up doing was pretty awesome. The way they did it was awesome. I agreed with that. But at the beginning of it, I wasn't really feeling her doing that, thinking, on the end of putting so many people in danger just to get the truth out. I mean, it can really mess with a lot of people's lives. So I was like, really? I mean, I get your guilt, but sometimes you just gotta do what's best for everybody and not think about this one person. So I was at first going, oh, come on, I kind of agreed with the doctor, but then, yeah, what she ended up doing was pretty awesome. The way they handled it, I agreed with.
You know what? Yeah, I can pretty much co-sign that. Now, something that we didn't touch on as much, but we can get into this, seeing as this is definitely the relationship section of the show. What did you feel about the relationships between Dustin, Lucas, and Mad Max, and how they ended up handling that situation? Because one of the things that I know that people probably got nervous with was when Billy, I guess apparently Billy's the raging racist asshole as well. So once they started kind of going down that path, I was like, okay, now I'm really curious at how they're going to handle this all the way around, because Stranger Things, even though that they do make their points, I think that inserting, even though I think that it could potentially be justified. I mean, it's 1980s. They're in Indiana.
Yeah.
Lucas and his family are probably, I think that they're the only black characters that I have ever seen on the show. So we got an opportunity to see Lucas's family, and his sister is awesome, but they put that dynamic into the show, and I was like, I wonder how far in either direction are they going to go. So they kind of played around with a little bit of intolerance, even though they never directly stated, why
Mm-hmm.
Billy didn't like him, but I think that they, it kind of made it obvious at what it was. Did you think that the relationships between, or this triangle, so to speak, between Lucas, Dustin, and Max, did you think that that worked? Because at the end of the day, I was kind of, well, I guess by the last episode, because I think when Steve was protecting them from the demi dogs or whatever, I think when they were trapped in that bus, there was a scene where they were holding hands through a bunch of chaos or whatever. So they kind of gave you a hint at where it was going. But were you surprised that they kind of left Dustin on the outside looking in, or was that meant to be because of the relationship that was built between he and Steve this
I
season?
I enjoyed the way they handled it with, you had Steve kind of coaching Dustin and saying, pretend like you don't care. And then Lucas kind of followed his instincts and was, the one who told her everything, told her the truth, and was really honest with her, worked really, really hard for that, that relationship, where Dustin was kind of listening to Steve's not really great advice of, just treat her like shit, pretend you don't care about her, and she'll latch on to you. And at the end, she ends up going with Lucas, which I was glad at the beginning because I love Lucas anyway, that they ended up together. I think they're cute, and I hope it sticks. I thought it was cute, and I liked the way Dustin handled it as well. He wasn't an ass. At the very end, when Lucas asked her to dance, and it was clear that they were probably going to be a couple, he handled it really well. And he went right on to another girl, and then, of course, Nancy at the end ends up dancing with him and telling him that, he's going to eventually grow up to be a looker and not to worry about it. So he was like, all right, just brushed it off and moved on.
Yeah, did he brush it with the Farrah Fawcett hairspray by the end of the episode? But what did you feel about that, Mona? Did you think it worked?
Yeah, no, I agree because Lucas and Max were a fit in the way that possibly Jonathan and Nancy could be a fit, whereas Steve and Dustin eventually are guys that could have just about any other girl that they want. You know, this is an example of two people that actually connect because of who they both are, and they're an adorable fit, and they connected on levels that Dustin just didn't have with his "I don't care, I got Farrah Fawcett hair" attitude. And the fact that he was able to dust it off and go find other girls to ask out and ended up dancing with Nancy and everything, I think he's gonna be just fine, and Steve's gonna be just fine. And they may always be like, wow, that one girl that got away was special, but they're still gonna find someone just as cool that's a better fit with them personally.
Well, I totally knew it was a wrap when she and Lucas were on top of the bus, and he was doing the scouting, and she spilled her guts and then started crying. I knew it was a wrap.
Yeah.
I was like, you got her there, sir. And I think soon after that, the attack happened, and then they ended up holding hands when they were kind of scared of what was going to go on there. Now, the other relationship that we haven't explored yet was Hopper's relationship with 11. I mean, we end up finding that I think he ends up fixing up the cabin. I think it was his grandfather's cabin, and they ended up living together. But he wasn't necessarily sharing that information with the people who would really like it, Mike. And we found out later that Mike wasn't too happy that 11 was literally probably right around the corner, all of this time. And he's been wondering where she was. Now, they didn't, even though we got some scenes with them to kind of give us the overall, the way the relationship was working. It was certainly like a father-daughter relationship, but a father and daughter relationship where gets an attitude, shit gets broken. You know what I mean? So he's kind of learning his way to being able to deal with her, but you can definitely tell that he cares a lot about her. He's definitely committed to her, as an individual. I really did love the scenes between the two, and I look forward as these characters are literally growing before our eyes. I'm really going to be curious on how much of a time jump it'll be and what their relationship will be like after she has, I don't know if I want to say matured, because still, if you're a teenager, you're still, brand new to a lot of things and you think you know everything. But I'm really going to wonder, as these characters do grow, how is Sheriff Hopper going to be able to put himself in a position to keep her from, just doing something that might scare the shit out of, regular people that are in the community, because they do have to keep this on the down low. So do you think that that's something that he's going to be able to overcome in the future, Kristi?
I don't know. I mean, his way of doing it this season didn't really work, and I understand why he felt like he needed to do it this way, because he lost his daughter, and I think it was almost like, I'm just going to keep her in this cabin and then she'll be safe, and I won't have to worry about losing her. I've got almost this new daughter and I'm really protective over her. But you can't do that with a kid. Even one that is crazy, not crazy, but strange as 11, she needs to be socialized. She needs to be taught how to behave in a normal circumstances, normal life, or she can't stay in a cabin forever. So I don't know what the next step is or what plan he's got for the next season on how he's going to handle her. But if they can't figure out how to have a relationship, he might as well just keep her in that cabin, because she's going to be tearing shit up all over the place. So
yeah. Well, what do they do? Because I think, at the end of the episode, of course, we see the school dance and we see that 11 ends up coming. So I'm wondering, is this going to be a situation where is he going to actually put her in school around a lot of people where she's going to have to be really constrained in what she can do? Or is he going to keep her separate, and is she going to be taught away from everybody? So I'm curious to see what that dynamic is going to be, because I don't think that they touched on, outside of us, of course, finding out a little bit later in the episode that that she's Jane Hopper now. So I guess she's adopted, so to speak. But I'm wondering how they're going to handle that, because as you guys mentioned earlier, you still have the Callie thing in the equation, and she hasn't gone anywhere. And then you also have all of these people dealing with stuff that no one else is on their level on of understanding. And you're going to have to put 11 in a situation that I don't think that she potentially may not have been in her life, in a setting around a bunch of other kids who can be cruel. If anybody will make you, you know, go nuts and use your power, it's some motherfucker in junior high or whatever.
Exactly.
So we'll see how that.
I have faith in their relationship, though. I really think that we saw a turning point when Hopper and Elle were down closing the gate, where he was like, I'm going to go with her. I will literally go to the gates of hell with her, but I'm going to let her unleash her power when it's appropriate. And I think just that, them holding hands on the way down, him being there as her protector, but also knowing that in the end she was going to be the stronger of the two. And then the steps that he took, finding out how to get a birth certificate, finding out how long that they needed to be in hiding until he could start bringing her out. I think that they have a long journey ahead of them, but I think that they are in a good place as far as him starting to really understand who she is, what she is capable of, and what she isn't capable of. And they are definitely going to be headed for some missteps that I'm sure we'll see in the next season. But I think that he has a better understanding and is better able to deal with some of the challenges that they're going to face.
Yeah, I can definitely, I'm definitely feel that. Now, let's talk about the demi-dog, the full demi-gorgon, or D'Artagnan, or the polywog, as Dustin would call it. Well, what did you think about the demi-dog concept? At first I was like, this was kind of goofy, but as time went on in the show, they started growing and becoming more threatening. And then, of course, we find out that they're, pretty much baby demigorgons. What is the demigorgon to you as a horror creature? Like, would you rank that pretty high, or have they not really let it loose and really destroy like it probably should be able to enter the ranks into awesome, pop culture horror monsters? I actually think that it's kind of cemented itself in, just mainly because of the greatness of the show itself.
Yeah, the lab full of dead people, that pretty much, to me, cemented the whole thing into stone. So.
And Bob.
That's what I mean, yeah. A whole lab full of dead people, and watching them tear Bob apart was like, there it goes. Okay, now they have graduated beyond cute little lizards. So
yeah, I mean, awesome. they're definitely on par, of course, and a lot more dangerous and scary than Ghostbusters dogs. But they kind of remind me of it's a game, and it's the girl, and
Umbrella Corp. Yeah. Damn it. Resident Evil.
They kind of remind me of the Resident Evil creatures, but they're pretty, I would say, threatening. I'd run. I'd wet my pants and run if I ever saw one. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they're pretty. Yeah, they're pretty beastly, and just the fact that they added so many more of them, I think that upped the scariness and the threat level of those characters. I mean, of the monster characters, so to speak. Now, let's talk about Dustin and Steve and their relationship that was built up. I know we briefly touched on it earlier, but I definitely felt like that was a relationship that I liked watching. It wasn't ever boring, even though, as Moni said, a lot of the advice that he gave him may or may not have been good advice. I think by the end of the show, he realized that it wasn't good. It wasn't really that good of advice. But I like their relationship. I definitely want to see a little bit more of those characters interacting with each other. Next year, I kind of think that they might be the power couple next year. I mean, who the hell knows
that's
what
a romance for the ages.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. So is that something that y'all liked? I mean, were you guys feeling that relationship, or you wanted to be squashed?
Oh, I adored it. I love it.
It's great. I think it's great. Hey, I think they're both kind of on par in their little groups. I mean, Dustin isn't as, he's no Steve, but he's got the attitude and the ego to make it work for sure. I think he's going to be just
Mm-hmm.
fine. And I can see them like being pals. And and I don't know if I said this when we were talking about Steve, that, as soon as Dustin was like, I need your help, he's like, let's go. Like, it wasn't a question. No, you're just a kid and shut the hell up and leave me alone. I'm emo because I just, broke up with my girlfriend or she dumped me or whatever. But he was like all for it. So I think they're going to be friends running into the next season as well, for sure.
Now, something that we didn't touch on earlier was 11, because one of the things about this season, so we had an opportunity to see, all of the things that happened to her mother, and that whole tie-in kind of led us to what was going on with Callie. Did that fit in for y'all, or did you feel like it was out of place? I thought that it worked because they didn't spend a ton of time on it. I thought that they got to the place that they needed to get very quickly, and I appreciated that because initially when the episodes, probably the first third of the episodes, I was kind of like, I wasn't really sure where they were going to go with this or how they were going to tie certain things together that we were curious about from the previous season. And I enjoyed, it was kind of horrific what her mother was going through, but I personally thought it worked. Was that aspect of the season something that worked for y'all as well?
It worked for me, I think, and I'm wondering if this will probably be answered next season, is why Callie, out of all the numbers that, of kids, why Callie? Why was the mother fixated on Callie being the one that 11 needed to find, I guess is my big question. I thought the story with her mom was well done, made sense, and sucks. That's got to really suck for her to be dealing with that basically on a loop. But again, I was kind of left at the end of the season going, why did she want them to come together? Did she want 11 to have, revenge, or she's thinking of her at a different age? And I don't know. I was kind of confused about that.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a minute where I was telling you guys that you had completely dropped out. I couldn't hear anything or be heard. So I missed a little bit of what you guys were just saying, but that season, or that episode 7-11's 11's whole episode. I caught that that's what we were discussing. So I do think, as I mentioned when we first started, was that I think that this whole thing is going to come to more of a head next season. But I'm not sure if I'm interested in seeing that. And I did see on some of the fan pages and things that was kind of a divisive episode for people. And I felt the same way. I kind of felt like, why are we exploring this in this kind of depth? Why should we care about these throwaway band of misfit characters? And, it did come up briefly when we see Elle kind of trying to harness her power while closing the gate, where she sees Callie's voice in her head telling her how to do it. But other than that, unless they do something really great with it next season, I would say that whole episode for me was a bit of a dud. I mean, I guess it was interesting about her mom, but it's something that at the times when they had like 4 different storylines going on at once, they could have thrown into a regular episode, especially when you only get 8 episodes. You don't really, I don't feel like, need to devote an entire episode where you take us away from the rest of the core group that we're here to see. That's just kind of my 2 cents on the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, something else that was kind of interesting is that when another character is going to be absent, I kind of think that the whole Max thing is you had to have a female character there to fill the vacuum from 11 being out, kind of doing her own thing. Mm-hmm. I thought that was one of the reasons why they had Max as well, but they integrated her into the story so well that it didn't necessarily feel that way all the time during the season. But after everything's been said and done and you looked at how things were pieced together, I thought that things like that worked. Now, before we get out of here, though, we definitely have to talk about some of our highlights, at least of the season. And one of my favorite highlights from a character that apparently Kristi despises, Billy, was he and Mrs. Wheeler, I really believe that next season they're totally going to set up for there to be some type of angst between the Wheelers, and I totally think that Billy is going to bang those rusty innards, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so. I'm telling you, that's the new Stifler's mom situation. Like, is it going to be just be him, or is it going to be like she's going to become the neighborhood bicycle that knows how to ride on? We'll have to, we'll have to find out.
I mean, I totally like her characters, but we mentioned Thirst. It's the way she looked at him. They're totally going to sit of shenanigans between those two characters, and I thought that I thought that it worked. I mean, like I said, Billy is supposed to be the asshole of the show, I guess, besides these demons that are killing everybody. But he's kind of set up to be kind of the heel for Steve or whatever. But I definitely like that scene. It was one of the things that stuck out to me the most. Was like, okay, they're actually probably going to go there. And even if they don't go there, they at least left themselves some rope to where if they wanted to go that, the seed was planted this previous season. But this Wheel is beautiful. So, but I have to say, but she looks like someone who is, maybe she's not,
DTF.
Yeah.
She's not getting what she needs from home.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I think that's what they were set up.
But the 80s pretty boy styling, I'm not really sure if they're going to bang each other or if they're just going to trade like hair and makeup and like cleavage tips from one another. I don't know.
You know that Billy was totally styled after the main character on The Lost Boys. Tell me you don't see that with the open shirts and the one long earring and the long hair. And wasn't his name Billy too? Now I'm trying to remember, but I swear his name was Billy.
I think that there was one of those characters, Billy. Now you got me wanting to watch Lost Boys. I actually have it on my show.
Yeah, the main brother that ends up, falling for Star, and the guy Patrick. Isn't his name Patrick something? Anyway, yeah, I might have got cold head, so I can't think of it. But he looks exactly like the dude from the good character from Lost Boys, and I'm wondering if that's how they got his styling. But this isn't a funny scene to me, but I have to say this, and I know I'm going to get, again, called out, but I think Mike and Eleven's relationship is so awkward and uncomfortable. I'm just not feeling it at all. Nope, not feeling it at all. Maybe I just need more time for it to develop or something.
Yeah.
So you just don't want them to be a couple, or you don't?
No, that's got to be it. I think what she's saying is they haven't really. We know that Mike and Eleven like each other, but they haven't really. I don't think that they've really explored that. Like, is that kind of what you're talking about? It just seems like it's thrown in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like his real overreactions to 11, coming back. I mean, everybody was shocked, of course, and he was upset and shocked, but it was up. And then at the end when they're dancing, and I just wasn't feeling it. I don't know why. It's not that I don't want them together. It's that I just haven't really seen why they're so crazy about each other. I mean, maybe I need to go back and watch the first season again so I can get that vibe, but this season, you didn't see very much of 11. She was kind of off on her own till the very end, which I kind of had a problem with. I mean, I understand why she was, but it sucked because by the time she got thrown back in the mix, it was just, they're such different paths. It was kind of weird that they were thrown back in together and so still very into each other. I just felt that was kind of strange. But
Mike was the new Will. It seems like he wasn't used that much this season, or maybe that's the way that it felt because they had so much going on. And I feel you, Kristi. It kind of feels like they
forced a little bit.
Yeah, it felt like they had to do something to kind of make up for the fact that they had kind of, ignored that character. But I was actually talking about Will. I guess we definitely can't get out of there to talk about the performance from the young man who played Will, and actually that's Neil Hargrove. Wait, Will, not Will. I meant Will, not Neil. Let's see here. I'm trying to look at the IMDb, and of course, I can't find the young man's name.
Oh,
no, that's Mike. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I have found it here. Oh, Noah Schnapp, who played Will Byers. I thought that he did a great job of just, he's definitely an expert at shaking and having wide eyes and having his mouth open wide. He definitely should get an award for that. But I thought that he did a good job, and I'm happy at the fact that they let that young man shine, especially seeing how much he was absent. In the first season, and for good reason. But I definitely want to give him some kudos before we get out of here. I thought that he did a great job.
I agree with you. I really thought he did well. In fact, when you're talking about the shaking, when he falls down to the ground and starts convulsing, when they start trying to destroy the vines, and all, just that whole experience, and then the relationship he has with his mother, I thought that dynamic was awesome. At first, he's holding a lot back from her, and then she kind of convinces him to open up to her, because she can't help him if she doesn't know what's going on, and just her willingness to just completely dive into everything that he's going through, and be so supportive. I thought they had a great dynamic, and I thought his acting was fantastic. He did a great job.
Okay, definitely agreed. Were you feeling Will this season, Moni?
I was feeling everybody, honestly. Like, you can feel the pain coming off Dustin when he's watching Lucas and Max dance together. Joyce, like, her willingness to fight for her son, even if it means possibly killing him, just because she knows this will never end and it will kill him anyway. Like, yes, Will, and the duality of having this thing inside of him where he's kind of trying to fight it with, like, kind of the Morse code thing that he was doing with his hands, versus the trying to be like a spy, trying to act like an innocent little kid who's actually been taken over by an alien. Like, it's just, everybody, I think, did a fantastic job, especially given the fact that most of the cast is kids. It's just, what an amazing cast, and it really brings home what is a fairly simple concept and a fairly small cast of characters, and just makes you care about it so much more, is because they're so awesome at making you believe and feel everything that they do, for sure.
Well, I am definitely on board for a season 3, and there have been some things that I've been reading with some of the showrunners and things like that, where they were essentially saying that they wanted this to go around 4 seasons. I think that a lot of people say, hey, well, there's a potential for a season 5, but with them saying that they kind of have an end game going, they were saying that they wanted it to go 4. And if they already know where they're going to go, because the end game is very important, because it allows you to craft your story, in a way where, when you know how things go full circle, and then you can kind of close that loop and you have a destination, then you know how to do the different acts accordingly, which is something that The Walking Dead suffers from. Like, The Walking Dead is so open-ended that you're just like, I don't I think that's kind of a hindrance to the show. And I want this show to go out on but I'm that by the time that season 4 comes around, if there's a possibility, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't get a 4th season if that's what they needed, is I want them to finish on top. So hopefully they close this things out, and it's awesome when they close it out, because I think that that's the way that shows need to go. And at least for 2 seasons, I've got full confidence that the people who are dealing with this show have the ability to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Shows really thrive under a plan, and plans really only can be well executed when there is a storyboard with a timeline involved. Because, like you said with The Walking Dead, even I'm feeling it this season, it's like, even if you know where you want it to end, if you have to have unlimited episodes in between to get it there, you're going to go off on tangents just to make it longer, and that's not cool, And so, I hope that this does have an end date, and I always trust that shows will thrive better under those kind of circumstances. And I think that we're going to have a good run with this show. But that being said, I hope we get a spinoff or something, because maybe like Steve and Mike go off on a buddy comedy. I don't know, because we're going to miss the show and these characters for sure.
I'd like to
Oh
see.
yeah. Hey, well, something else. Oh, go ahead, Kristi. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say after this story wraps up, I'd like to see kind of what I had mentioned before is they do a different Stranger Things, like another town, another small town in another state with another group of kids in another situation, similar but not the same. Kind of like American Horror Story, but just more with more story. You know what I mean? Like more seasons tied to it, and just do different types of stories based on the same kind of premises.
One of the I'm sorry. You were breaking up a little bit, Kristi.
Sorry.
I didn't realize that you were.
Audio on the show talking. Is really bad. I apologize. So
yeah,
just know I don't know if it's because I'm not plugged into the hard line or if just it's bad today. I was in the freaking mountains of Washington and did not have these problems last week, so I don't know what's going on today. So apologies.
No worries.
Already.
No worries. Most of the episode, you sounded great. It's just there are a couple of instances where you might have broken up, but something that Oh, okay, cool. So we're spreading the shit show around apparently. Now, well, let's talk about some of the stakes in this series. With them making the decision to go at least 4 seasons in this show, there's a lot of times where I see these characters, the core characters, and even though they're going through a lot of things and things seem dangerous, I never really get the sense that we would lose any of them. That's one of the reasons why, off and, to kind of keep them from having to dig into that well. So for me, of all of our core characters, I have to say that I think that Sheriff Hopper would probably be the prime candidate if they wanted to go there to kill someone off to show you that these stakes are truly real. So what I wanted to know from either of you is, do you think that they would ever have the cojones to kill off one of the kids?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be 11. Honestly, at some point, I think that the strain, it makes her nose bleed every time that she does. And she's going to be the one that's going to be put up against the most dangerous things. And at some point, she's going to fight something that's just too big and too bad, and it's going to take too much out of her. They kind of flirt with it in the first the first season, where we think that she's dead because she has exhausted herself fighting, and she's gotten stronger, but so too have the odds against her. So I think that may have to be the ultimate tragedy in the end, is that they bond over the loss of 11, who brought them together in the first place.
I can dig it. What about you, Kristi?
I don't know if they'll go there. At the end of the day, it's still a kid's program. It's not, The Walking Dead, where no character's safe. I think if they're going to kill somebody, it's probably going to be one of the older kids, kind of like where, with Barb, like Jonathan or somebody who you love, close to the characters, but not actually one of the 4.
Okay. I guess I could see maybe Jonathan, but I think if they're going to get you, they really have to hit you in the gut. I don't think that Nancy has a chance of getting killed off, but I think that it's probably going to be, at least in my opinion, the older characters. I think it'll be Hopper, Joyce, or Steve before they get rid of, Dustin, Lucas, Will or Mike. So for me, I think it'll be the older characters, just mainly because it's kind of like that old thing where, the older guard has to die so the new guard can, move on. So I think that they're probably, in the crosshair, so to speak, a lot more than the kids. But but it's been a great conversation on the show. I really enjoyed the season, and I definitely would give it, a 4 out of 5. Do you have a rating, Moni?
4.5 out of 5, sir.
All right, Kristi.
I'd go with 4 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I enjoyed it, and it's always fun to talk television and to talk these great characters. I think that Stranger Things has done a great job of kind of cementing itself into popular culture, and it'll definitely be a series that'll be talked about for years to come. I'm really excited with what they're doing. I look forward to what they're going to do next season, and I think with that being said, if unless y'all have any other points to make, we can close this thing out. Y'all good?
I'm good.
Let's shut it down, yo.
Well, outstanding. Well, Moni, let everybody know how they can find you on social media.
I am Rebel Moni on Twitter and Moni Bear, MoniBarre, on Instagram. And I'm much more active on Instagram. And I'm figuring y'all are figuring that out right now because I'm getting a lot more followers over there. So I'll see you guys there.
All right. Kristi.
I am Creepin' Kristi on Instagram and the Creepin' It Real Show on Instagram and Creepin_it on Twitter.
All right. And you can follow me at militant_marker on Twitter and the gram. Well, until next time, I look forward to our show next week. I'm pretty sure that whatever flair that either of you throw in the air about the topic, I know that it will be awesome. And until next time, ladies.
See ya.
Thanks, Yardley. See you later, guys.
This is strange love in a strange world. I make strange love to a strange girl. All my lovers are strangers who get stranger and stranger. The more we make love, the more we make love, love, love. The more we make love, the more we make strange.
I gave you roses and roses and roses. You posed and I noticed. I took the time to notice. You make me lose my focus, romantically so hopeless.